Matt King.
Mr. Speaker, in 2015 and 2017, Northland was invaded by Mr. Peters and his band of followers. Like the Pied Piper, he promised everything to everybody. You remember those endless, non-negotiable bottom lines? There were hundreds of them. Send them a message, he said. Had enough, he said. Well, Northland has answered those messages loud and clear. They've had enough of Winston Peters and his band of merry men and women. 5% in the polls tells us that. Labor gave him, well, it's 5 now. Labor gave him the kitchen sink to get into power. They gave him the kitchen sink. But I don't blame them. They were desperate. They were looking at 12 years in opposition. Imagine that, 12 years.
Mr. Bull's right.
What about the top secret 38-page coalition document? They fought so hard to keep that secret. So much for an open and transparent government. Winston Peters came up north and he said free ferry rides for the Kohu Kohu and Russell ferries for gold card holders.
Terrible.
Not achieved. Sort out the Mangawhai $30 million rates debacle. Well, we're still waiting.
Terrible.
A referendum on the super city for the Wellsford voters.
Where's that?
That's not going to happen.
Where is it?
I'll shift that Auckland port to Northland. He said that, not in his lifetime and not in mine probably. Hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the rail line to the port and upgrade the Northern Line. I'll believe that when I see it. I'll believe that when I see it. But what's worst of all, he rubbished the Northland motorway, a motorway that's been identified by Northlanders and our 3 mayors as the biggest driver of economic growth in Northland. And his sidekick, the self-appointed champion of the regions, Matua Shane Jones, helped kick that $1 billion motorway into touch in exchange for some rumble strips, a couple of roundabouts and a few pet projects. Peters offered a binding referendum on the Maori seats.
Did he?
That hoovered up a heap of votes. He offered a binding referendum on reducing MPs from 120 to 100. That got him a few more. He promised to reduce immigration to 10,000. That got him thousands more votes. But what's happened? None of it. Remember, he pledged no more synthetic carpet and insulation in government buildings and in Housing New Zealand homes.
Where's the carpet?
He cannot be serious. They made the Pike River tragedy a political football. Shame on them. And they cancelled National's tax cuts under urgency, criticising us for using urgency. Tax cuts that New Zealand First and the Greens voted for and then changed their mind. They didn't even campaign on it. They are a government that has smashed the oil and gas industry. Everyone that understands that industry knows that's what they've done. They passed the electoral integrity. They're passing the electoral integrity bill, a bill that is devoid of integrity. They opposed it. It's had universal opposition, including experts and former Labour and Green MPs. It should be called the Save New Zealand First bill. New Zealand First and Green MPs are supporting it like turkeys voting for an early Christmas. But you know what? Northlanders are not fooled by that political rhetoric. Voters feel betrayed, and we welcome an early election. This coalition government is a flip-flop, backflip government. Open, transparent government, what a joke. Honestly, you could not make this stuff up. Bring on 2020.
That's right. That's right, brother. Good speech.